episode of Bard Brunch. I am so excited for this episode. I'm going to be making a cocktail I've never made before and honestly doesn't really have a recipe, so I'm going to be making it up as I go. Also, after that, I'm going to be talking to some amazing, fun people from the wonderful, wonderful Hamlet Isn't Dead. They are a spectacular troupe. I've seen their shows before, and they have a bunch of really great online content coming up. So we're going to discuss all of that. But right now, let's get me a little drunk. All right, so we are going to be making, as promised, a Ganymead cocktail. For those of you who are aware of As You Like It, Ganymead is the name that Rosalind takes on when hiding in the woods from her murderous uncle. So we have from Honey's Daggermead. It's, oh my god, it is cherry flavored actually because I have the humor levels of a 12-year-old child, and the goddess Hymen marries everyone at the end of the show. So cherry wine for the goddess Hymen. Let's just not tell anyone that I'm 12. All right, so I'm just going to put some of this in here. It's going to be a great time. I don't know how much I'm doing. Great. Okay, that's a lot. All right, so you are going to go back over here. And you know what? For a little fun time, let's add some Moscato in there. For everyone who's been following my Instagram, you'll know that I had a lot of Moscato last week, and I was trying the Vogue egg wine diet, which is that thing that goes around the internet every couple of years where it's like you have like 3 eggs a day, a whole bottle of wine, 3 cups of coffee, and you somehow don't die. Again, I'm not measuring any of this. I'm just pouring as I go. Let's take some of this white cran peach ocean spray. And I pre-opened everything in advance, so I wouldn't be struggling for like a half hour on camera. Yeah. This is going to taste like something. I don't know what, but something. All right. That looks like a thing. And then, so yeah, what we used so far was our amazing wine from Honey's. By the way, Honey's, I know you can find them on Seamless, but on their actual website, Honey's Brooklyn, they have free delivery, which is spectacular for ordering alcohol in this pandemic stage. I love free delivery on my alcohol. And then we used Forza Moscato for anyone joining in a few seconds after I started because I leapt into this. And then we had our Ocean Spray White Cran Peach. I actually had some of this recently on a very socially distanced and wonderful film shoot. We used this in place of rosé because it has that lovely pink rosé color. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to add my glitter in next, actually. I just got this. It's from Fancy Sprinkles, which I love a name that is exactly what it is. I don't have to guess what it is. It's sprinkles. It's Fancy Sprinkles. It is their prism powder, and it is red, and it is spectacularly glittery. So we're going to dump you. I don't know how much to do. I love edible glitter, though. That being said, a lot of edible glitter, I have no idea whether or not the body can digest it. So sometimes bathroom trips are really weird afterwards. All right. Thank you, Amanda. Yes, you needed that recap. All right. So once that comment goes away, I'll be able to show you up close how pretty this little cocktail is here. It's all like prismy and glittery because I just added a metric fork load of glitter to it. While I'm here, actually, I just got these silicone molds for ice, actually. And they go in 3 sizes. They sent me all 3. I can open it. And it looks like a little flower, a little rose. I'm just going to plump that in there. And that's fancy and cute. Calm down. All right. And you know what? For some extra fun, my little thing here. Yes, edible glitter. I am a fan of edible glitter. I'm going to add some maraschino cherries just to keep with the vibe that I created right now. Don't know what vibe, don't know how many cherries. We're just gonna have a time. And then I'm going to taste test this, and then I'm going to see how much food I'm going to need to make to absorb all of this alcohol that is going to go inside of me, so that way when I'm talking to the people at Hamlet Isn't Dead, because they are awesome professionals, I don't look like a crazy person. All right, so moment of truth. on, by the way, for people who have been to my apartment, they know that I don't have an island. These are several boxes stacked on top of each other just for this. All right, so beautiful, beautiful, glittery, shimmery, shimmery time. All right. Oh, well, that's dangerous. Oh. Yes, I am improvising an entire recipe. I put in cherry flavored mead. I put in Moscato. I can't even tell you how much of each because I just kind of poured it. And then I put in cran peach mixer and then glitter and a bunch of cherries. And it is so good. But it also doesn't taste like alcohol. And I know there's a lot of alcohol content in here. So I am going to just make some scrambled eggs and blasphemy bacon. So I can keep it light, so I can keep talking about everything that I need to talk about. But I won't get super distracted. And also the focus of this today anyway is the amazing cocktail that I'm actually just going to leave up right here so people can look at it in all of its glory while I'm doing stuff. So blasphemy bacon, by the way, for those who don't know. For those who do know, my oven is still broken. It has been for over 3 years. If I were a real person, I'd be able to like have the bacon being made, have the eggs cooking. But I instead have a one-top egg cooker, and I'm going to be making my blasphemy bacon in my microwave because that's how my life works. Oh, and I've just seen from our tech that Austin Powers is playing too loudly in the background. Okay, so thank you all for listening to the opening sequence of Austin Powers on Comedy Central. Didn't know that was still playing. All right. Also, fun little tidbit from the Austin Powers world. Before the pandemic started, I was actually going to start an improv troupe, an all-female improv troupe called Improvised Man of Mystery. It would be all based on Austin Powers characters. And then the world decided that that was the worst idea they'd ever heard of and put us in a plague. So, lesson learned. I'm not going to do that, I guess. So yeah, I always deal with half packs of bacon because it's easier for me to cook even when I do it on a stovetop in the times of my life when I have those readily available. Again, not now because our landlord has not fixed our broken oven for over 3 years. I'm just going to lay out some strips of bacon. And I always deal in half packs. So then also I feel like a little better about myself, even though I'm going to have 8 half strips of bacon, which is like 4 regular strips of bacon. Whatever. I confuse my brain to thinking that I'm somehow eating both more and less bacon than I actually am. So I'm just laying out my bacon on here. By the way, if anyone wants to try blasphemy bacon, you absolutely can. It's very easy, very effective. And honestly, I feel like it cooks a little better than trying to do it in a frying pan. If I had a real life, I would again cook it in my oven. But I can't do that. So, you know, how many did I lay out right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So you're going to go back over here. And then I'm just going to cover it with a little paper towel so it doesn't splash everywhere. And I'm going to put this in here and then yell over top of it while it's cooking for about 5 minutes. All right. Now, I have this. I love this. It is a little baby frying pan. And it is the cutest thing. It's from granite stone, so it's like one of those non-stick type of deals. And it's supposed to be for like 1 sunny side up egg for when you're feeling like you want 1 sunny side up egg. I'm gonna make 2 scrambled eggs in it though, because I am just making things up again as I go. I'm trying to find places to put all of my stuff that isn't going to knock it all over later while I'm in the middle of this interview. All right. Now that the Austin Powers theme song stuck in my head, if y'all want me to start playing that before and after every show, don't tell me because I'll actually do it. All right. 1 egg, just scrambling it up. So the first time I ever saw Hamlet Isn't Dead, by the way, I actually found them through my best friend, Andy. For everyone who knows my best friend, Andy, he is the person that I'm even starting like improv classes with. We're going to start teaching improv classes on the 16th of this month. Andy McCain, he was in their Merry Wives of Windsor. And the first time I saw their show, I actually had to go back and see it a second time because I accidentally messed up Andy by being in the audience. What had happened was, for some reason, even though he knew I was there, I even like sent flowers backstage, all of this stuff. He was not expecting me to, I don't know, be watching or whatever. And talented professional actor that he is, again, he's my best friend, so I can say this, he fully forgot his lines after locking eyes with me in the audience, just fully blanked. And because I had gone over his lines with him, I knew exactly what was happening. And I panicked, so we just like locked eyes for what felt like 5 years, but was really more like 3 seconds. And he got it back, which was great. And then as he was exiting, he tried to like fit parts of that monologue back into his dialogue as he was leaving, because it kind of made sense to the plot. But yeah, basically I had to go again and not look at him during his monologue, so that way I wouldn't mess him up again. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to Hamlet Isn't Dead, even though I'd seen them a couple times before, like online and stuff. Someone who actually works with Frigid New York a lot, Dan Dobro, he is part of Hamlet Isn't Dead, or at least still on their website, from what I can tell. But yeah, he's worked with them before, and they have some really great stuff coming up. Most recently, they have Timon of Athens, a virtual production of that. And look at these cute little scrambled eggs in my tiny little American Girl doll hand. That's adorable. All right. Also, someone remind Andy to fast forward through that part when he watches the replay, because I'm seeing him later, and we're gonna go hang out later because we have no other friends. This is too good. I don't know how well you can actually see this on here, but just these sparkles and glitter. Ugh, like it looks like condensation, but it is not. That is glitter all throughout my entire cocktail. I'm just gonna make this for the rest of my quarantine, which is gonna be for the rest of my life because no one is wearing their masks, and that irritates me. All right, and my little rose ice cube broke in half. Its petals are falling off. All right, I'm gonna check on you and see how you're doing. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've melted my plate a tiny bit, which is fine, because I have alternatives. All right, it's actually, you know what? It's going to be a lovely little Art Deco piece from now on. I didn't realize that this was not a microwave-safe plate. But you know what? We're fine. My bacon came out really well. It's not too floppy, but not too overcooked, I guess. So yeah, we are way ahead of schedule because I went really fast because I'm always really nervous making cocktails because I always feel like I'm going to do something way wrong. Turns out what I did wrong was cook a plate that couldn't go in the microwave. So I'm going to take all of this scrambled egg, put it in the bacon grease, and then, with the help of my lovely tech, who again, thank you for turning off Austin Powers, I am going to move all of my setup over to our kitchen area. And while we are doing that, you are going to be treated to a super, super fun video of a trailer from when Hamlet Isn't Dead did Hamlet, actually. For those of you who know me, I just finished an entire Hamlet festival where every show in the festival was based on Hamlet. Last year, they did Hamlet, but with 2 different Hamlets. So it was always like a different thing. There was like a male Hamlet, female Hamlet. It was a whole great, fun time. Very different aspects of the show every time. This is burning my hands off. I'm going to move this over to my table. Enjoy.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune,
Or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing, bend them. To die.
to sleep. To sleep. Perchance to dream.
Aye. There's the rub.
For who would bear the whips and scorns of time? The oppressor's wrong, the pangs of despised love, when she herself might her quietus make with a bare bodkin.
Thus conscience does make cowards of us all.
Yay! Awesome. Welcome back. Set change. I'm going to move my camera a little bit, actually, because all you're seeing is my brunch partner Satan puppet. You're not actually seeing me. And I'm the star of this show. Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching that. We're going to talk about their online projects happening right now. Please welcome Hamlet Isn't Dead! Woo!
Hello.
Yay, hello. Thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Hi.
So, hello. How are you?
I'm great. How's everyone? Val, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Sophia, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so good. David, how are you?
I'm still good. I love that, Jenny. I gotta say, I love that was the clip that you showed because it's probably like the only and most serious thing that Hamlet Isn't Dead has ever done. Like even the show was not as serious as that clip was.
A good bait and switch. We love it.
Yeah.
So please talk to me about Timon of Athens. How's that going? What's that about? How have you adapted that to Zoom? All of that.
Let's talk. I feel like I could talk about Timon of Athens for
Timon of Athens.
a million years. Timon of Athens is a different show, starring Pumbaa of Athens as well. But
yes.
But Timon of Athens. So we adjusted in the same way that everyone else has. I think Let me back up. Let me not get ahead of us. So what Hamlet Isn't Dead does is we are doing the entire canon of Shakespeare in chronological order, right? I know you know that. And we started at the beginning and have gone through, and we're a little over halfway through now with Timon. And we have moved Timon into a digital realm where really this season we are focused on development, right? We are instead of rehearsing and performing the play the way that we normally would, we've been really focused on talking about the play with our cast and talking about, the themes of the play and Shakespeare as a writer and how it's similar or dissimilar to other pieces. This is a big one that wasn't only Shakespeare. This was almost certainly Shakespeare and Thomas Middleton. And so we've been sort of like, you can go through and go, oh yeah, that's definitely Shakespeare. And then I bet Middleton came in here and went, let's just change that a little bit. So that's been a fun part of the development process to just talk about it a lot more than I think we usually get to, right? I think a lot of theater makers know that, especially, in small scale Shakespeare, you got to get it and go. You got to do the show and get it up and you got 4 weeks, 5 weeks max, and then it's happening. And we've had a little more time to just talk about the play than usual. So I hope we're able to carry that kind of practice into our normal rehearsal process.
Awesome. That sounds so cool. So yeah, this is going to be a weird question because everyone always has like the, well, yes, duh answer. And like, what are some of the pitfalls that you have experienced adapting something into a Zoom format? Like what have you had to change? And even what are some things that actually maybe work a little better?
For sure. I think that the pitfalls go hand in hand with whatever the opposite of a pitfall would be, a mountain climb. No, that's not a positive thing either. Right. It's this idea that, all right, I'm going to say something controversial, and Val and Sophia, you can agree or disagree. I don't speak for Hamlet Isn't Dead, I'm speaking for myself. I don't find doing Zoom theater to be theater. I categorize it as low budget filmmaking, and that comes with its pros and cons, right? On the upside of that is we get to work with artists from all over, right? Some of our resident acting company are across the country. Some of them are in, different time zones, and we can still work with them and still explore this play as a group. But then the con of that is that when it comes time to actually record things in person and, do some socially distanced performances here in a couple of weeks, we won't get to do it with them. Those will have to just be over Zoom. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah. I know when I ran my most recent Shakespeare festival, there was only one actual live show in the entire thing. Everyone else opted to record it as they would a live stage performance, only on Zoom, and then do some light edits of like subtitles or scene changes, things like that to make it a little easier. But yeah, it was more of a film festival than a theater festival this year, so I totally understand that.
And there are lots of fun tricks, and like you said, there are things that we can take back with us somehow, right? When in doing theater this way, we get to really direct where the audience is paying attention, right? We can do entrances and exits. We can do, change the names to indicate characters. There are a lot of little tricks and adaptations that I'm sure everyone has managed, but I think we all miss being in a room together, right? We went into theater for a reason, for that person-to-person connection, and missing out on that is a real bummer.
Yeah, I miss people real bad. One thing that our theater at Frigid New York is trying to do is figure out outdoor spaces, because we're at least trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we social distance enough without circulated air? But for the time being, it's all virtual. And while I'm happy to sometimes sit at home and wear my pajamas while running a show, it's not the same.
It's not. And we've sort of just leaned into that. I think, as a lot of people did, I think we went in optimistic and went, all right, because we had to close the last week of our production of Twelfth Night that we were doing was right in the beginning of all of this back in March. And I think we all went, okay, that stinks, but let's get our heads together and we'll be back in the summer. And then we all went, we'll be back in the fall. And now we're all going, we'll be back, don't worry. But we've really leaned into it. Like I said, we're doing a much more developmental season this year where we're not as focused on the product. We're really more focused on the process and about, which I think is so, not to go down too deeper rabbit hole, but is the theatrical landscape in general right now, which is so great. We're all looking at everything that's happening right now and going, let's really look at what's happening. Let's look at the good things and do the good things, and let's look at the bad things and get them out of there, right? So I hope that we're able to, come into 2021 with a real sense of change and improvement and not holding on to, broken traditions just because they were traditions.
Here's hoping. Cheers to that, for sure. I always also feel so awkward. I made up this entire concept of my own, and then people just have to sit here and watch me eat while I talk to them. So
how'd your drink turn out?
It's so good.
I wish I'd known what was in it so I could make one myself. I just have a beer instead, but
yes, it is a cherry mead. It is Moscato, which is pear wine. It is edible glitter. It is a cran peach ocean spray mixer and some maraschino cherries just for fun.
I only have 2 of those things in my apartment right now, and I'll let you guess which they are.
I decided what products I was going to use today, so I just kind of made it up as I went. Anyone can just make up anything these days. Listen, if theater can go online, I can make up any cocktail I want and then tell people it's an actual thing.
You're not wrong.
So speaking of all of the stuff that you're doing on Timon and Pumbaa of Athens, you're working on making it more of a process and all of that fun stuff. I've seen on your website that you are also doing some fun other like Shakespeare expertise programs and Contemporaries of Color series. So can any of you talk to me a little bit about that?
That was an excellent segue. Thank you. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about our Shakespeare expertise program. So obviously a lot of people, and first of all, I want to apologize for my short stature and wide shot of this. I feel like I'm trying to get my chin above my name tag.
Just stand up, make it a standing desk.
I don't want to. Anyway, so obviously a lot of folks are very focused on making their organizations anti-racist, which is fantastic and super important. Originally, we said, okay, we're going to commit to recruiting more Black and Indigenous people of color for our staff and for our resident acting company. But the thing is that it's all well and good to say that, but still the people who were showing up were largely white folks. And so we found that a lot of communities, especially communities of color, don't have the same access to classical training that white communities will have. And so we thought, well, let's provide that classical training. And this is the difference between equality and equity. So that's something that's in development right now. Currently, we are looking to provide this training to adults of all ages, whoever is interested and wants to learn more about Shakespeare, and hopefully we'll be able to then expand to high school students who are going to be auditioning for colleges, because oftentimes college theater programs will require Shakespeare monologue, and if you don't have that training, then you might not get into the same theater programs that others who did have that training would get into, which then continues to establish this inequity. So that's really exciting, and we're working on how do we make it interesting and exciting for everyone who's involved, while also giving them these skills and teaching about, meter and punctuation and all of the nitty gritty of how to read Shakespeare. And then also, how do we make it look really good on a resume? Because we want to be able to help folks progress in their careers.
Yeah, it's such an individual thing, right? Education in classical training is so, we would never expect anyone to come into the room and do Hamlet, right? You can never walk into an audition room and be the character, right? So finding a way to communicate to any student, hey, this is yours, do it in your voice, do it, you're not Hamlet, you're David playing Hamlet. Show us that. I think because of a lot of the history of Shakespeare, it gets truncated, right? It gets specified into being either a very white thing or a very, class-based thing, or any number of things, and being able to really say, no, it's for anyone, and the story is going to change based on the actor. It's really important to the way that we approach the education.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm really excited about that whenever that starts. And of course, if that ever has like a start later down the line or whatever you want to do, feel free to come back on the show and talk more about that, like exclusively that, of course. And I think right now we are running how to donate actually to your company, but we're going back and forth between how to contact you and how to donate to your company. So of course, I think if there's any updates about that, that's going to be put on your website, right?
Absolutely. That should be starting in 2021, right? Right now we've got Time of Athens, and then our next main stage show coming up in November, December. And then our Contemporaries of Color series. So we're really sort of like working on that transitional process, and we've just hammered out the sort of like syllabus for this education program, and we're going to start putting it into practice, like I said, early next year.
So speaking of this Contemporaries of Color quarterly series, can anyone speak to that a little bit about what that's going to be?
Oh my God, I think I can speak to it. Hi. So our Contemporary of Color series, basically, we wanted to take a look at other playwrights that are non-Shakespeare, that are classical, in hopes of highlighting the diversity of style and substance that was going on not only during Shakespeare's time, but our own time and times before that. So we just announced our lineup for this year, and we have Trials of the House by De La Cruz, poems on various subjects, religious and moral, by Phyllis Wheatley, the Kanli Kavik, the Bloody Poplar, which is a Turkish shadow theater piece, and then Matsukaze, Wind and Pines by Kanami Kiyotsugu. It's we're really, really excited about it. And each one of these pieces showcases a different culture, a different point of view, and serves the ultimate purpose of creating diversity in what we consider to be a very European-centric time, which it's not. So yeah, we're very excited about it, and happy to go into each one of those pieces and why we chose it and all that sort of stuff. But that's basically that. And so yeah,
it was a fun process getting to read new plays and explore new times. I know that it is an effort of a lot of groups right now, right? Our friends at the Hedgepig Ensemble Theater, they're doing their Expand the Canon project right now, which is looking at female playwrights, and I think female playwrights of color almost entirely. It's just fun to I think will be fun for us will be to take these plays that are sometimes more contemporary and sometimes less of Shakespeare. I think we went as broad as like 1300s to 1700s.
So modern. Oh.
Yeah, it's
Well, it was difficult because I think it would have been very easy to pick, let's say, 4 different Spanish or Latinx playwrights of like Shakespeare's time period. That would have been a simple thing to do. But that's not particularly diverse either, right? That's just sort of centralizing on one place. What we found, unfortunately, is that Shakespeare was alive 1564 to 1616 and was writing, in that time period, and a lot of theater in that time period either wasn't put together in the way that we think of a script, or wasn't written down but was expressed orally, or was destroyed by colonialism or other, just cultural atrocities. So it's like we went in, I think, very optimistic about, let's find people who are writing the way Shakespeare was writing when he was writing, and had to broaden it, which we were happy to do, and which we're excited to make Hamlet Isn't Dead's own, right? The kind of theater that we do, which is very much for the audience that we're speaking to, and focuses more on the storytelling than any sort of like reverence or separation. I think it will be really exciting to see if we can do a non-Shakespeare play in a Hamlet Isn't Dead way.
That's awesome.
And also utilize outside artists too, like the proper sort of storytellers, if you will. Like, we're going to try to utilize the rack as much as possible, but also bringing in guest artists and furthering our collaboration with the off Broadway scene is really exciting as well when we approach these projects. So.
That's so cool. I love all of that. So let's talk some weird stuff now. And again, you can obviously continue to talk about the projects that you have coming up. We can tie them into whatever I'm going to ask you. But I love to talk about on-stage, like, mishaps, catastrophes, all of that stuff. I know during our little cooking segment, I talked about my best friend, Andy. He is my best friend, so of course I'm allowed to make fun of him a little tiny bit. One of the things that I always talk about that happened to me on stage that was nightmare fuel was during our 2016 production of Midsummer Night's Dream. We did it in an outdoor space at Alair State Park in New Jersey. And I played Titania. I had to be asleep on stage for a long period of time, and there were a lot of spiders in the area. So for the entire time I was asleep, I had spiders crawling on my face and getting in my wig, and I had to find a way to get them off of me without just screaming and ruining the entire show. So either along those lines or just whatever you think of as something hilarious that maybe the audience didn't even realize, but backstage everyone was like, oh my God, we're going to die. And all three of you can answer your own answers to this, of course. What is your funniest or weirdest mishap to happen during a Hamlet Isn't Dead or otherwise Shakespeare show?
The first thing that comes to mind is from that production of Hamlet that you showed a clip from earlier. That was funnily enough, it looked like me, but both those parts were actually played by Megan. She's just that talented that it was actually just her. But when we were doing Hamlet, we began Act 2 with Ophelia's mad scene, with Ophelia playing the ukulele. And one night we had our ukulele, which had already broken a string, so it was already down to 3 strings. And then right before Act 2, it broke another string. And playing a ukulele with 3 strings is doable, but playing a ukulele with 2 strings feels somewhat pointless. So we were obviously in a panic. What are we going to do? We do it a cappella, or we do it some other way? And realized that one of my wife Megan is who was playing Hamlet that evening. I was playing Ophelia, and one of our students was in the audience, and she uses a ukulele bag as purse because she's an artist. And we had our stage manager go to her and say, so this is weird, but do you have a ukulele in there and can we use it? And luckily enough, she did. So she sat in the audience and tuned it and then sent it backstage, and we played that ukulele instead, and she basically saved Act 2.
We love a happy ending. So
you really, you gotta love a happy ending.
I'm sure the sheer panic right up until then was just horrifying. All right. Who else? Who else has a horror story for me?
I have a horror story about Midsummer as well. When I was, Midsummer, I don't know why. I feel like there's something that goes on with Midsummer.
Everyone calls the Scottish play The Curse, but it's really Midsummer. People just don't know.
It really is. I was playing Bottom, and this was in my last show I ever did in high school, and we did it this was back in Chicago with the Shakespeare troupe, Chicago Shakespeare, shout out. And I was playing Bottom, and I had a cardboard ass hat on, and it was very specific because it had strips of cardboard, so I couldn't see in front of me. I could only see on the sides. It's important to the story because we did this thing called the cluster puck, where Puck would come in and do this whole entire make everybody do stuff and fight. It's that scene right after 3-2 where everyone finds out why don't you love me and all that sort of stuff. So I just do a simple cross on stage, and I noticed that my friend Marshall was limping off stage. And so he was limping after the cluster puck, and I was like, oh no. And I'm the only one trained in first aid. And so I go off stage, I twist my ass hat one way so I can see, and I'm tending to, when I'm telling him, elevate it, and the whole thing lasts about 30 seconds. And then I hear my friend Ashley behind me, she cusses, which, we're in high school, and she does not cuss. She says something oh, fuck, or something like that. And so I turn my ass hat the other way, and I run over to her. And she ripped her leggings. She slid down the wall on a metal outlet and slipped her leg and ripped her leggings. But luckily, it had this sort of steampunk thing going on. So one of our fairies was just covered in safety pins. So I brought over our safety pin fairy, and I start pinning her butt. And I realized that there's blood all over my hands. And I was like, oh my God, I pinned my best friend's ass. And so then I had to go on stage, and this is after when Bottom's asleep for the next 5 scenes. And I'm going on stage covered in my friend's blood on my hands, and I'm thinking the entire time oh my God, and it's adrenaline. She has no idea that I pinned her ass. And it turns out that she just scraped herself on the back. It wasn't me, and she ended up getting stitches, but that was probably the worst stage flum that ever occurred, in my opinion.
That was also not a Hamlet Isn't Dead production.
No, it wasn't. I said Chicago Use Shakespeare. It was not. It was absolutely not. But yeah, that's it. That's mine.
Again, full Mackers in the whole bloody hand situation too. Wow, that was interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Mom. But yeah, she's definitely watching this. She's not going to be happy that I dropped the F-bomb, but here we are.
Listen, it is a free show on the internet, so we are just going to do whatever. All right, Valerie, do you have a story for us?
So I cannot for the life of me think of
Valerie's perfect.
I can think I'm not perfect. I'm sure there's stuff, and I'm sure my old cast members, if they saw this, would be like, Val, you forgot about this very obvious stupid thing you did. But I can't think of it right now. I do remember a time, it wasn't Shakespeare, but in high school we were doing Urinetown the Musical, which is a very interesting show. And our lead antagonist had his appendix burst and opening night. And so day of, we had to scramble, and we didn't have any understudies or anything. This was high school. After that, we made sure that we had understudies. But one of my friends stepped up and had a binder and had to read the lines, and we taught him very basic choreography and stuff. He did a phenomenal job, but I also found out, so for opening night, we forgot to let the audience know that this was a thing until intermission. And so we found out that a lot of the audience didn't realize that this wasn't a thing, and thought because he was a businessman, and thought the binder was just a prop. And it really just goes to show that the audience will just assume that what you're doing was planned.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
That's great.
That was very stressful.
I
feel like it
always
happens,
know
yeah.
that like some of the most stressful times on theater, the audience, like when you talk to your friends afterwards, they're like, I had no idea that was happening. It's like, great. So I was also panicking for your reaction for no reason. So I should just never panic again.
We just sort
Me
of
all the time.
we just sort of assume at this point, like, it's not a Hamlet Isn't Dead show if there wasn't a massive typo in the marketing and if something stupid didn't happen. And like the first show that we did, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, programs and posters went out everywhere, and we didn't realize until 2 weeks after they'd been out that the poster said Two Gentlemen of Verona instead of Two Gentlemen of Verona. We just like, I don't know how we missed it, but just completely couldn't read, I guess. So we are no stranger to goofs and gaffes.
I know when I was doing our first ever Shakespeare production of As He Likes It, which is Ross instead of Rosalind, there was a girl named Wendy in it, and for some reason on all of our marketing materials she was Weddy without an N, just 2 D's. And we didn't even notice at all until she was talking about it backstage, like laughing during the performance. We were like, why didn't you tell us that? We could have fixed that. And she's like, no, it was hilarious. So I was like, oh, okay. And with stage names these days, nobody knows if anything is real or not based on naming. I actually have an actor that I work with all the time whose name is Saturday. So really anything is possible these days. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more back to your online shows. You have 3 other shows coming up. Obviously, nothing is set in stone these days. We have no idea what we're going to get out of this pandemic stage. But what are the other shows in your season that you have lightly planned?
So our main stage shows this year are Timon of Athens, which we're doing right now, Measure for Measure, which we'll be doing in the winter, and Othello, which we'll be doing in the spring. And like you said, nothing is planned. Oh, Sophia didn't like that. She left. Bye, Sophia.
Timon, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Timon has been really exciting because, like we said before, we've added a lot of new people to our organization, right? We went from having a resident acting company of 20 actors, to now we have 30 actors. We went from having 3 people in leadership positions to, I think we have 9 right now. So this Timon of Athens has been cast with most of the resident acting company. There have been a couple of actors whose schedules didn't line up for it, but it's been a really exciting way to get to know these new actors. When usually we would only have a monthly meeting to get to know them. Now we've gone through a play process together, so I feel like I'm much closer to them than I would be in other years. Measure for Measure will probably be similar in development. It'll be a smaller cast. It'll be, specifically cast as a usual play would, but then just sort of done as a development series, which is, the fun thing about Hamlet Isn't Dead, one of the fun things, is we are doing the plays in chronological order, right? So my job as an artistic director is fairly limited in that scope, where I just go, okay, great, these are the next 3 that are coming up. They still always seem to align with something happening, right? When we were doing Richard III, it was the week that we opened that his remains were discovered in that car park in England.
We love the universe giving you press.
It's really just, you can't, someone's looking out for our PR. And with all that we're doing right now, right? Timon of Athens is a show about extremism. It's a show about how if you are too generous and don't take care of yourself, you're going to fail. And if you're too stingy and don't take care of your neighbors, everyone's going to fail. Timely. Measure for Measure is a show about, sexual assault and extremism, right? Again, a world in which there are people who are entirely hedonistic and on one side of a spectrum versus people who are completely prudish on another side of a spectrum, and how moderation, in all things. And then Othello, we can go race relations, we can go otherism, we can go xenophobia, there are tons of current relevances, which is advantageous if unfortunate, but it is sort of how our seasons always seem to line up. And whether that's just our good fortune or just the broadness with which Shakespeare, the canon is? Column A, column B.
Awesome. And I know Measure for Measure, is that going to be also planned to be a Zoom production or a socially distanced live and then like sent out to an audience production? What's going on?
We've been really fortunate in that our home, where we are the resident Shakespeare company, is the center at West Park, which is a big church turned arts studio at 86th and Amsterdam. Very different from where you remember seeing the Merry Wives of Windsor when we were in a tiny community room in the East Village. Now we've got, a church sanctuary on the Upper West Side. And we've been very fortunate that they are doing, all right as far as organizations go right now. So our end product of Timon is going to be a sort of making of video where we've been recording all of our Zoom rehearsals and we've been working with the actors. And next week we will start filming them live in groups of either monologues or small groups. And we'll sort of compile all that into a sort of like making of production that we will send out rather than like, here's a play from start to finish. And so I assume that we are planning that Measure for Measure will be in a similar vein where we have time at the center that we're very lucky to be able to work in person. And what we send out will be a little less traditional. Our more traditional offerings will be the Contemporary of Color series where we will do a proper staged reading with an audience. Othello's just got question marks everywhere. Who knows?
Who knows anything these days?
That's scheduled for March 2021. So
here's hoping that everyone starts wearing their masks and not going to bars and stuff.
Fingers crossed.
When you can make such a cool cocktail at home, why would you go to a bar?
Exactly.
Right? Who needs a bar when I can just throw whatever I have in my fridge into a glass and then see what happens?
Yeah.
So yeah, are there any other like things that you would love the audience still watching at home to know about, either like where to get tickets or any fun little aspects that you're like looking forward to with Timon of Athens that you haven't touched on, because I know you talked a lot about it and all of the super cool things about it, but like anything that you would like us to know before we end early, because you guys are very efficient. So
I mean, I could also just talk about Hamlet Isn't Dead forever.
Do it.
But to somewhat summarize, I think, like I said before, we are just so. I love the individual actor and the individual audience member, right? We are so focused artistically on making something real for an actor, and I think the word accessible gets thrown around a lot, especially in Shakespeare. And I find that a very tough word to bump up against, because if theater were actually accessible, then it would be free and everywhere. And, it would be a resource like water, right? The theater, I think, in a lot of times is in danger of becoming a luxury resource where it's only for certain people and for certain groups. And I really just look forward to dismantling that as much as possible moving forward, right? Being able to, I would rather an entire audience of people who have never seen Shakespeare before, who liked it okay, than a group of scholars who loved it, right? Like the number of times that people have come up and said, I've never seen Shakespeare before and I followed the whole story. That's what I'm going for, that one person, right? So I hope that people can come play with us, right? That's the goal. Is we don't want to take it too seriously. We don't want to make it exclusive in any way. We just do it because it's fun.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you all so much for coming on the show. I am plastered from this cocktail.
Good for you.
So efficient and knowing exactly what you guys are talking about and stuff, because that eggs and bacon did not soak up as much of this as I hoped it would. So,
how many? What number in the series is this?
This is only 2. This is
okay. You'll figure it out. You'll get the recipe down of how much food you need to balance.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. After the show, we're going to put up in the comments all of the links and stuff, so that way anyone who's watching this on a playback doesn't have to like screenshot or pause at all. They can just click on those links to get to your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, your all of that stuff, and your regular website, of course, for all of that information, plus also your donation site, because right now everyone needs donations.
Yeah.
We need it. And it's through Fractured Atlas, right?
It's through Fractured Atlas, so it's tax deductible, and it's going to a good cause.
We love that. We love that so much. Thank you all again so much for being on. I really
Thank you. Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everybody. So, right before I get into our closing credits, just so you know, next week we are going to be talking with Braving the Bard. They are a company that started during this pandemic, and they are doing Shakespeare radio plays, and they actually are holding auditions for their Choose Your Own Inventions Pericles, and those auditions end on Friday. So I would love it if a bunch of people submitted, and then I could bother them about how many people submitted on Sunday the 13th when we talk to them, which is going to be great. The email address is bravingthebard@gmail.com. I know that is scrolling a bit down at the bottom. We will also put that in the comments, but again, thank you so much to the Hamlet Isn't Dead team for being here. Now, for the end, I am going to read a monologue that I have never read before, because I made a cocktail that I've never made before, and I'm a wee bit drunk. If my phone will work. Give me 2 seconds. I'm trying to turn this on. If not, we're just going to run some credits and see what happens. Hang on. Yeah! It's up. It's gone. Yes, it is up. It's up. I'm a professional adult human being. All right. So please enjoy The Jailer's Daughter from Two Noble Kingsmen. I'm going to get in camera frame. Yes, there I am. Okay. Why should I love this gentleman? 'Tis odds he never will affect me. I am base. My father the mean keeper of his prison, and he prince. To marry him is hopeless. To be his whore is witless. Out upon it. What pushes are we wenches driven to when 15 once has found us? Oh, God. First I saw him, I seeing, thought he was a goodly man. He has as much to please a woman in him, if he pleased to bestow it so, as ever these eyes yet looked on. Next I pitied him, and so would any young wench on my conscience that e'er dreamed or vowed her maidenhead to a young handsome man. Then I loved him, extremely loved him, infinitely loved him, and yet he had a cousin fair as he too, but in my heart was Palamon, and there, Lord, what coil he keeps. To hear him sing in an evening, oh, what a heaven it is. And yet his songs are sad ones. Fair spoken was never a gentleman. When I come in to bring him water in the morning, first he bows his noble body, then salutes me thus. Fair, gentle maid, good morrow. May thy goodness get thee a happy husband. Once he kissed me. I loved my lips the better 10 days after. Would he do so every day? Oh. He grieves much, and me as much to see his misery. What should I do to make him know I love him? For I would fain enjoy him. Say I ventured to set him free? What says the law then? Oh, God. Thus much for law or kindred. I will do it. And this night, or tomorrow, he shall love me.